The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
What's good, everybody? It's your boy Jay here with Unfair Sports. So this special Sunday broadcast is not a live one. This is a previously recorded interview that I did a day ago with former OU quarterback Paul Thompson. So I wanted to get that together. We weren't able to do it live with you all, so I got it previously set up. It's going to come through live. So hop in the comments and chat with each other and go back and forth. We're definitely going to talk about recruits and stuff later this week, especially with the latest update from Zadavian Sims that we didn't win. But I hope you all enjoy this conversation with Paul Thompson as he talks about the spring game and everything that he saw and all that jazz. So enjoy. I got a special treat for you all here on the channel. We have former OU quarterback Paul Thompson joining us to talk OU football. Paul, what's going on, my man?
Not too much. Just getting ready for summertime activities with the kids. So you know, it's they're gonna be running around the house, and it's gonna feel like COVID again. Trying to work from home from time to time, and little ones are not too little anymore, but noise in the background, dogs barking and all that stuff. So, but they're so they came running out of the school screaming and yelling and everything else. So they're ready for summertime.
Yep, they was hitting you with that Phineas and Ferb's 104 days of summer vacation. They ready to get started day one, baby.
That's it. Got the pool heated up. Unfortunately, it kind of dropped the temp. It's got a little cool today. I think it kind of dropped here to around 70-ish. Not too much.
Which was a big disappointment.
Yeah, and so not upset at all. But usually in the past they've come home or at least last year they hop in the pool and all that. So I had it heated up. They still may get in it, but it's a little bit cooler today.
Oh, I could totally see that, and the fun part about going into summer is realizing that it's pool season, so they can just go jump right into it. But like you just said, if it's a little bit cooler, it's not as fun. It doesn't feel as good getting into a cold swimming pool.
Not the same. It's about 85 degrees right now though, so they should be all right.
Nice. Okay, well, let's jump into some of the fun topics or whatnot that I have. First off, spring game. I know that you were actually in attendance out there. How did that go? Talk to me about the atmosphere for you there when you got to get back on the field, because you went to the one last year as well, right?
So I missed last year, when Baker came back, and I was kicking myself. So I made it a priority this year because, like I said, everybody came back. I was looking on Facebook last year, but, like I was mentioning with kids, man, sometimes we got to divide and conquer. I think my wife might have been in Dallas. I was in Tulsa at a game that weekend, and so ended up missing the entire weekend. So this year I made an effort to not only be at the spring game, but I went to Thursday night. They had a little event for all the alumni there at the casino in Norman. And so I went out to that. Then obviously Friday was Kyler Murray's statue reveal there at the Omni downtown. And so I went to that as well. So I blocked off, for once. I was like, okay, hey, this is going to be our priority, even for my son, because we missed every OU game last season, because we always had something on Saturdays. And most of OU's games are, those 11 o'clocks, and we're somewhere playing basketball or soccer at that time. So made it a priority to get out there. And then made it out to the spring game. I hated it because it was a little bit cooler. Like Friday was nice, the weather. Sunday was great. Saturday was a little chilly, and we had gotten out there pretty early too. We got out there around 10 o'clock just because there was a little bit more alumni stuff going on prior to the game. So I wanted to be involved with that. And then, got to, and obviously I think Kyler's thing was around 11:30 or so.
Right.
So there was already people all over the place. And so I'm sure it was similar, if not even more, the previous year with Baker. But from an environment standpoint, even with the weather and it being, pretty chilly out there, people came up, people showed up. And so that was good to see. I mean, it was, like I said, I think a lot of people ended up leaving around halftime. Us ourselves, we even left at halftime just because the kids were a little restless and chilly being there. We had been there since 10, but I think we were there till probably almost 4 o'clock or so. So from 10 to 4, we were out there. And like I said, there was, thousands and thousands of people out there. So it's always good to get back out there. And, like I mentioned, I just hadn't got out there a whole lot in the past seasons just because of kids sports. So it's really nice to see a lot of the former teammates that I hadn't seen. Some of the guys I hadn't seen since we played 20 years ago.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize that. That.
Yeah.
But it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it totally makes sense on that, and I totally get you with the kids thing. That was my son played soccer, and my daughter did as well before she decided to retire in high school. And your Saturdays are booked up. That's basically your life. So I'm watching football games on my phones with other parents at the games. We over here sharing, like, you see that? Did you see that play? We over here talking through it, and so yeah, it keeps you completely occupied throughout the fall, especially since you said like your twin girls play soccer. You don't have a Saturday to yourself for a while, but it's good you made it out this year.
Yeah.
And so, okay. So you got it to be there up until half. I know that, with the new regime change, we've had all the changes that came through for Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley leaving, and then you had Brent Venables comes in, bringing in Jeff Lebby, who was at Oklahoma when you were there, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So you've got relationships with just about this whole staff, which is actually pretty awesome now that I think about it. Talk to me about how you feeling about this staff coming in this year. I know last year wasn't what we wanted, what we hoped for at being 6 and 7, but do you see light at the end of the tunnel with this new regime coming in, especially since you're kind of partial because you know them?
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah, for sure. So the pieces are there, right? And then, once we brought BV back, and then Lebby came back, Joe John's already on the staff, DeMarco's on the staff. Who else? I know there's a couple more I'm missing because Schmitty is back. Lance Mitchell is on the staff. Rufus Alexander's on the staff, and so this is my squad. This is 2002 to 2006 squad, and so one was happy that BV got the nod and got to step in. Hated that the season went the way that it did, especially for BV. It just is what it is. There's a lot of dynamics you got to deal with now, especially when you're talking about the transfer portal and getting guys in and all that. So completely understand, kind of getting things up and rolling. But hate that, Venables had to kind of start off as bad and as rocky as we did, because I know he's a good coach. I think he'll get a chance to prove that here this season. I think the pieces are starting to come in place. And again, this is a whole new era, a whole new time. And you're talking about the transfer portal and NIL and the things you got to deal with and trying to assemble a team. It's not like it used to be where you could kind of build it from the ground up. Right now, you got to build it through the transfer portal. Obviously, you still want to get great recruits in as well, but not all the time do they stick around for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so I think for sure, obviously Lebby, he's been successful all over the place. Out there with UCF with Hype. I know he was in Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. Obviously they're at Baylor with Art Briles, and so he's got a track record of success and doing well. As well as the other coaches there on that staff. So BV knows how to win. It's funny because everybody wanted him out or was, get rid of BV right here. What was that? Probably 15 years ago now.
Yes.
Then he jumps over to Clemson and just straight dominates. And everyone's like, come back. Right. And we were having our defensive woes. And so, be careful what you wish for. And so now we got him back. Right, we got our guy. We got an OU guy, and so again, he's from a personal standpoint as well. The way he relates with the recruits, the way he relates with his team. There's not a better guy to represent the University of Oklahoma and build this program back to where we're used to being at. So 100% feel confident in this staff, young staff. Again, a lot of guys that I played with, and a lot of guys that have a lot of experience as well. So I'm excited. I think there's kind of really only one way to go from last season, and that's up. And hopefully we can kind of start building some momentum here as we push to enter that SEC.
Ooh, those the words, SEC. And so we got former OU quarterback Paul Thompson here talking OU football. And so let's go dive a little bit more into the actual game itself, especially at the beginning. We've got quarterback Dillon Gabriel out there who he had a really good season his first year here. The injury kind of made things a little bit rocky for him at the TCU game. And then, of course, at the same time, it felt like to me Lebby pulled him back on the reins a little bit because we recognized that there wasn't really any depth at the quarterback position, especially once the old regime left. The cupboard was bare. We're kind of starting from scratch. And so then you bring in the recruit, Jackson Arnold comes in. And so now everybody, I'm terrified personally that we're going to have fans start chanting for him like they did the Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler situation. I'm hoping it doesn't happen. But I want to get your thoughts as a former quarterback. When you saw Gabriel out there, not only this past season, but even going into the spring game with him and Jackson Arnold, what jumped out to you about him being able to be sufficient enough to help us win some games this coming season?
Yeah, so Dillon's a solid quarterback, right? So I think we've probably gotten a little bit spoiled here at Oklahoma, right?
Yep.
Our track record is pretty nice when it comes to quarterbacks. So, we just did back-to-back Heisman ceremonies, the last 2 years at our spring game. So that just doesn't happen anywhere else you go. And so, you even look at, Caleb Williams, right? Who obviously he transferred, but he was 3, right? He was another Lincoln Riley. That'd have been, another one. But
and Hurts was like number 2 in Heisman Trophy votings the year.
Hurts was right there too, right? So, so Dillon Gabriel is a phenomenal quarterback, right? So he's not at the level of those other guys, but that's rare air as well when you're talking about his predecessors. So Dillon's a great quarterback, has great command of the offense, has great command of the huddle. He's got respect from his teammates, and he goes out there and he makes plays. Right, he's smart. He had plenty of games under his belt prior to coming here to Oklahoma. And so, and then, experience with Lebby as well. And so just having that grasp of the offense has really helped him out. And so I have no questions about Dillon Gabriel being able to lead us even to a championship. But, let's just get to the Big 12 championship first, right, before we start talking past that. But, winning some games, being on the winning side of just a regular season record, and then Big 12 championships and stuff like that. So Dillon Gabriel can definitely do that. Jackson Arnold obviously is the flashy and the next thing, right? So that's where we always get in a problem as fans is it's always the next guy, right? We always want to see the next guy, right? Because their potential is we haven't unlocked it. We don't know what it is, right? So we haven't seen them. And so you allow your imagination to get going, and that sometimes can get you in trouble when it comes to, maybe putting a guy out there too soon, maybe not putting them out there in the right, situations. And it can be counterproductive as well when you're talking about, us as fans looking at a situation and not knowing the in-depth practices and film study and all that. And, yeah, he's a great prospect, but we don't know where he is yet on the collegiate level because we haven't seen him, whereas the coaching staff has. And so we get into this where the fans want to force something to happen, which could be detrimental to Dillon Gabriel's psyche. And so the guy that we have on the field that's supposed to be leading our team, right, is hearing boos or, chants from the stands on every pass that he underthrows or overthrows, right? And so I dealt with that very briefly just because I was, after we lost to TCU, our first game, I was benched. So it wasn't like there was a couple of games there where I was hearing it. But even that game, first game of the season, You could hear stuff in the stands because Rhett Bomar was the Jackson Arnold of 2004, right, or 2005. And so, it does something to you too when you come out and Bomar comes in and the crowd goes wild, right? It's like, man, that's tough after what I've put in, what I've done here at this university, to hear that. So I'd say for the fans, for sure, we got a potentially, really, really good quarterback in Jackson Arnold, but let the system kind of play itself out. Trust Lebby, trust BV on how they go about rolling that out, and maybe they make him let him sit and watch. Or I know nowadays you can still get some playing time and still redshirt, so maybe you get some games in early in some of the blowouts, and then we go from there. So two great quarterbacks, I'd say a really, really good quarterback and a potentially good quarterback. But yeah, to have at least some of that, a little bit of buffer where we didn't have that last year, and it really exposed itself in that Texas game, when we had to go wildcat or, split, our quarterback out wide, and just now we're playing 10 on 11. And so
it's true.
I think we're in a much, much, much better situation. And not only that, but Dylan's got a year under his belt and, here at the University of Oklahoma as well.
No, that's a good point. And I forgot that was that year in 2005 was the year that Bomar was basically was behind you, because he redshirted in 2004, if I'm correct.
Right. So I redshirted my third year because Jason White got a 6 year of eligibility. Right. So I played as a true freshman and a true sophomore. So I backed up Nate Hibble. We ended up going on, won the Big 12 championship that year, went to the Rose Bowl, won the Rose Bowl. The next year was our was Sugar Bowl year. And so that was the year we lost. Was that the year? Yeah, we lost the national champion, or we lost the Big 12 championship to Kansas State.
Played LSU still, yeah.
Played LSU still, lost that one, a close one. And then so the next year, 2004-ish,
yep.
Jason White got a 6 year of eligibility, right? So he'd just come off, Heisman Trophy, just tore his ACL the first year, or my freshman year, came back, Heisman Trophy, all that. And then I was like, man, I'm going to take this year to redshirt. So it was kind of unorthodox that I sat out middle of my career, but I wanted to have at least 2 years to play after that. So after Jason left that year, that was a USC year. So we won the Big 12 championship. We were supposed to be, one of the best teams ever. Ended up losing, getting smoked in the national championship to USC. And then 2005 is when I got this.
Does that game actually exist though?
No, it doesn't. It never happened. Never happened, right? So
never happened.
Never happened. Thanks to Reggie Bush on that one. So yeah, so 05 season, then 06 is when I finished up.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And so, yeah, having the experience with the Bomar situation, I remember that. I remember looking at that like, why are we doing this to Paul? Why don't we just let Paul play? And then, of course, the TCU game, that was in the era of the Gary Patterson surge at TCU. And then that's when we actually realized at that point that Gary had Bob Stoops' number. It was like one of the coaches that had Stoops' number, and he would give us hell for years on. And so, yeah, that scenario is something that I'm really hoping we don't see play out again, because, yeah, like you said, it messes with the psyche. And kudos to you. I think that was my favorite part about you as a player was you took that in stride. You moved to wide receiver, started doing some things. And then, of course, Bomar did almost as expected in some capacities, got himself in trouble, had to leave. And then, boom, what happened? He just plugged you right back in. Went 11-3 the next season. So obviously we knew that the talent was there and the ability was there. We just had to surround you and everybody with the tools needed to be successful. So, okay.
Spring has sprung, and our friends at Manscaped have the best tools for some spring cleaning. They've already helped you tidy up all the nooks and crannies of your body's basement, but this year, Manscaped can help you get the perfect presentation on that beautiful face with the new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Make sure you look your best this spring by using code BELLYUP20 to get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. It's time to tame your mane. with the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. The sun is peeking back out, which means you'll have to show your face in the daylight again. So use the kit to make sure your scruff looks award-winning, whether you got glorious beard flow or some smooth, sleek cheeks. The kit starts off with the Beard Hedger, a waterproof cordless trimmer with a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard. So no more messy drawers full of add-ons. It also comes with the titanium-coated T-blades that are tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to a single-stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. The Beard Hedger is a high-tech piece of art in a travel-sized package with a long-lasting battery, universal charging, and a strong motor. So what are you waiting for? Save 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the promo code BELLYUP20 at manscaped.com. Focus on the face and use the Beard Hedger Pro Kit for the cleanest look in the game.
Let's jump into a little bit more of that brain of yours or at the quarterback position. We got former OU quarterback Paul Thompson here on the show. I want to talk about on the defensive side. So back in your era, the early BV eras, back when our defenses were overly stout with just raw talent and could at moments carry the team for us in some capacities. Yeah, I kind of feel like the Florida State game was them carrying the team to the national championship. When you see the guys that they brought out this year, just size-wise, when you're walking around looking at them, what jumped out to you at some of those defensive players this year at the spring game?
Yeah, solid. We got some solid guys up front, and kind of going back to what you were saying back when I played, that's exactly what it was, right? You had the Tommy Harrises, the Dusty Dvorak's, the Lynn Magruders, big guys up front, holding it down and really setting the tone. I remember back then, whenever we'd win the coin toss, we'd put our defense out there first, right? Mm-hmm. We'd let them go wreck shop, and we'd be up by 30-some points and still get the ball at halftime, after half, and so that's a big part of it. I know there's some new faces out there. I don't know everybody's name, but that's where it all starts. On the defensive side, we talk about some of the woes in the secondary. It seems like that's kind of a common theme, even when BB got in there. And I know there's some learning to do, and it doesn't just change overnight. But some guys running wide open. Saw that even in the spring game defensively. It's like, man, why is nobody guarding a receiver streaking down the sideline, right? And so a lot of that can be helped from a tough defensive line, right? Getting pressure on the quarterback, making them, see ghosts, even if he's not getting pressure, making him think that he is because you've been up in his grill the last 2 or 3 plays. Right. And so growing that, developing that defensive line, obviously continuing to educate and grow the secondary. I've said it too. It's tough. Defenses could dominate, 20 years ago because offenses weren't as complex as they are now. True. Right. So back when I played, it was Texas Tech was really they were the first air raid offense, right? They kind of laid it out. Graham Harrell, BJ Simmons, Cliff Kingsbury, those guys it was straight. We're throwing the ball 45 times a game. Everybody else, you might be 18 to 25 type of deal. And so, and then not only that, but the spread offense where you got 5 receivers, right? You got 4 receivers, you got a tight end, you got a running back coming out as well. So to be able to think about all of that defensively and be in the right position, you can bust. If you bust and you think something, you got the running back and you actually have the tight end, well, there goes the tight end down the middle of the field for a touchdown, right? There's just a lot more to think about than you had to before. So, but again, that's no excuse for letting guys be wide open because there's other teams out there that are, solid at their cornerback position or their secondary positions as well. But, like anything, whether that's the offense or the defense, it starts up front, right? It starts up with those guys, allows you to have flexibility in your play calling offensively. And allows for your DBs defensively to make plays, when you're cramming up the middle and forcing them to throw or, getting pressure on them and being able to get in front and make a pick or knock a ball down just because you got your bigs getting in their face. So, so it looks promising. I know there was, again, I can't remember. I'm not as great with names, and part of the reason is because I don't follow recruiting as much as I used to, because everybody just decommits and recommits somewhere else. And it's like, all right, screw y'all. I don't, until you get here and you're on the field, right? I could care less about you, because there's so much of this just back and forth nowadays that I don't follow recruiting nearly like I used to. I just root for the guys and cheer for the guys that are out there on game day. But I know there were some bigs, some nice size recruits there at the spring game as well. And it's crazy because I'll take, even when we got on the field, again, it wasn't last year, but I did take my son to a practice. And I swear, people are like, everyone is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I was walking around out there, and I'm like, I was like, I can't imagine one of these guys falling on me right now. Like, and I used to run around on this field and just, have 4, 5, 6 of these guys chasing me. And I'm like, man, I can't imagine just getting leveled by one of these guys right now, as big as these kids are. So we got some talent, that's for sure. We just got to put it into action and put them in the right places and make sure they know what they're doing.
No, that's a good point. When you look at the players in comparison now, yeah, of course, in your era, there were some pretty big dudes on the defensive side, but man, nowadays, yeah, they're walking in there as freshmen. Like you're seeing dudes at 300 pounds running 4.40s on the defensive line. You're like, where is this? Like, what are y'all feeding these kids? Like, how much juice are they really on? Not steroids, just juice in general. They on apple juice nonstop. What's the secret?
Right.
But yeah, that makes me go back to like you said, on the recruiting is tough. That's the one thing I do keep up with a little bit. But there's a lot of changes that are happening on that side of the ball. So kind of want to level set it for some of the fans that are watching and listening. We got to remember we had a huge set of turnover once Lincoln left. I mean, I think over the years that he was here, besides just graduates, I think like 70-something% of the players were gone by BV's first year. It's just, like I said, transfer portal shifting, people decommitting, and it's just a lot of new bodies in there. And so depth was definitely an issue for us this past season. And unfortunately, that's what we had to deal with. But luckily, as you mentioned, I do believe BV and staff is able to handle it. So got a question for you on that. We've got former OU quarterback Paul Thompson here joining us on Unfair Sports. Got to ask you, BV, I know you've got some fun stories of him losing his mind on the sideline. You got to give us one that was funny from practice or a game. What you got?
I mean, yeah. So the nightmare, especially as a freshman coming in, was so that my most of my interactions, right, obviously, as being an offensive guy, I didn't really, I weren't, we'd have our own kind of, coaches' dinners where we'll go to their house and hang out and stuff like that. So, you'll have the defense will do their thing too. But one thing of being a freshman is your scout team, right? So you're running plays for the defense. And so at this time, so BV was just a linebackers coach. So Mike, so that's two, Mike can get after you probably at another level than BV could. I heard some combination words that I'd never heard before as an 18-year-old coming out of Leander High School in Austin, Texas. I was like, wait a minute, what happened to all that sweet, fluffy stuff everyone was saying when I was being recruited, right? And so, BV was, he'd get to going and he'd get that spit going on his lip, whenever you didn't throw it to the right guy. It's crazy because, you're running scout team. And so you're basically you're running exactly the plays that they want you to do and throw it to the receiver they want you to throw it to, whether he's open or not. And so where you get into it is where they'll rip you is if you throw it to another guy, even if he's open. And so they're so structured in what they want to see. They want to get a look at, right, their defense and how they're reacting to me, because this is what they've seen on film and their tendencies of the offense that they're going to be playing against, that, hey, they're going to look here first. And so, yeah, you'll get into trouble and you can get ripped for throwing a complete pass to the wrong receiver. And so a lot of times, regardless, and that's not always the case, but a lot of times, you go into the huddle, they'll draw up a play, or not draw up, but they got all the plays written down, but they'll have one of the receivers circled. And so that's where you got to throw it. And so BV's given it to me a couple of times just because, I didn't stick to the script. And so you got to push down your natural instincts of throwing it to the open guy and make sure you throw it to who they want you to throw it to for that specific play. And so, but, not a whole lot of credit. Like I said, I wasn't, even off the field, wasn't around hanging out. It was more on the field type stuff. But BV could get after it for sure. And so he's brought that same level. What's crazy is, and you can probably tell from his voice, but he's had that same voice, for 20 years now, since he was, in his early 30s. And so you can tell his intensity. He still has that same intensity. And again, Mike Stoops had it at a different, I guess I wouldn't say his intensity was more, it was just different. Mike had a couple screws loose, that's for sure. And so, a great coach in his own right, but he had a little twitch to him that was unlike anything I had ever seen before.
That's funny. He says he had a couple screws loose, which I could totally see that. I mean, I feel like you have to be a little loony on the defensive side to actually.
Yeah, I think you got to. I think you almost have to. You got to have screws loose to just be a coach in general, right?
That's
you gotta,
fair.
You gotta be a little different for college football or really any level of football. Shoot, I had coaching my son, up through Little League. I was like, all right. That'll make you crazy in itself right there. And so I can't imagine trying to maintain and watch over, 85, 18 to 20-year-olds, 22-year-olds, and get them to perform. It's tough.
I bet. And I was actually going to ask you the question on what kept you out of going into coaching, but it sounds like trying to keep up with all those young kids was probably the problem.
Yeah. So even prior to me having kids and a family and all that, it just never interested me. So, again, it takes a different kind of person from a lifestyle standpoint. It's 24/7, not that, other professions aren't. But, then you got the aspect of, you're dealing with young men, they're going to make mistakes, and I know a lot of these coaches can't sleep at night, because they're worried. I can't imagine today, prior to whatever it was 3-4 years ago when this NIL kicked in, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about a kid running around campus corner with $100,000 in their pocket, right? And all the mistakes and bad decisions and choices that can come from that. So, it's just never been an interest of mine. There's just so many, obviously I got, tons of friends that are in coaching now, and you pulling your kids out of school when, obviously Lincoln leaves in the middle of the night. Right. And, you got a guy like Calvin Thibodeau who's not retained, and, he had finally worked his way to making it here to the University of Oklahoma, his alma mater. And, head coach leaves and it's like, hey, we'll see you later. Up and move your family, right? Your wife's just got to tag along regardless of what career she's trying to pursue. Your kids got to get up out of school. And so those were things that I kind of factored in, but it was never really it never really was a thought process or in my thought process to be a coach.
Okay. I can dig that. I totally understand that. I think that's the one thing for me is as long as your spouse, and it's funny because it seems like, especially with the older coaches, their wives just got their own lives, and they're just like, whatever the husband's doing, he's doing this thing, and they're just living their own life as a local celebrity. Like Miss Terry over there in Alabama, she runs Tuscaloosa, and there's no way that Nick could ever leave that city. Oh, my actually correction. He can leave. She ain't going nowhere.
Right.
I'll just see you, maybe one of these weekends if I decide to still entertain you. But I didn't really get to hear your recruiting story. How did that go when it came to being a recruit? And is in comparison to today, of course, with NIL, there's a big difference there. But what was it like being a recruit, especially coming out of Austin, Texas?
Yeah. So I was getting all the Trader and everybody when I played, because I committed to OU the summer before my senior year, just to kind of shut everything up, which is complete opposite of what happens now, right? When you commit, or you got a kid that commits, which doesn't mean anything anymore, right? I committed heading into my senior year because that's typically, what you do to stop all the phone calls and stop all the interaction. And then the team knows that, okay, hey, I got this many guys that have committed, so I have this many scholarships that'll go to them. Nowadays, all that's out the window. So even when someone commits, they're still getting recruited, and it just really defeats the whole purpose anyways. But I committed to OU the summer before my senior year, and I had an official visit. Mark Clayton was my host. So what's funny is my offensive coordinator at my high school he grew up here in Oklahoma, big OU fan, and was always talking about OU this, OU that. My freshman, my sophomore year, and then I guess it might have been my junior year, 2000.
Okay.
Yeah, or I guess my sophomore year, because I know the championship was in 2000. Championship was 01 for OU when they won the national championship. And so that was really my first, OU, they kind of, because, obviously before that, they, were just mediocre. And so I remember Coach Williams just said, hey, OU, and he had on his phone the Boomer Sooners song. So that was my first kind of interaction with an OU fan. I had no clue where Norman, Oklahoma was, right? And so as I was getting recruited, my junior year and all of that, Bobby Jack Wright, started showing up. So he recruited Texas. And obviously Chuck Long, my position coach, started coming down, right? And they got these national championship rings on, and, Bob Stoops comes to the house, and I'm like, yo, this is legit, right? I'm like, this is, and then I realized, shoot, Norman, Oklahoma is only 5 hours away from my hometown. And I'm like, ain't no way Norman, Oklahoma. I had no idea where Norman, Oklahoma was, right? And so I was like, man, 5 hours away. Not that was, I could have gone to Florida or anywhere else. It wasn't a distance thing. But I'm like, man, that's pretty cool. My grandmother lived in Denton, Texas, and so that's kind of halfway point there. And so went on my recruiting visit, loved it. Ultimately, was like, man, they're going to allow me to play quarterback. Texas was my other choice. I kind of had it narrowed down to OU and Texas. Texas offered me that summer prior to, around the same time, Texas had offered me, but they offered me as a receiver. I went to their 5-day camp. First 4 days was quarterback. Last day, Mac Brown was like, hey, let's see you at receiver. And obviously they had, Vince Young obviously was my same year, and that was going to be their guy at the quarterback position. So they wanted me to try out receiver. Went out, ran some routes, snagged everything, mossing people, and they were like, we want to offer you. So the next day I came in and they offered me as a receiver, and I was like, man, I could be right here in my backyard. But I was never like a diehard Longhorns fan. I followed them just because they were in my backyard, but was never I wasn't at all the games and rocking the gear or nothing like that. So I was like, man, you know what? Mac, I'm not Mac, but Bob and Chuck, Coach Long said they're going to let me play some quarterback. So let's go on up north and go play quarterback. So that was ultimately what it came down to. Again, loved the campus. It blew my mind just being that I was from Austin, and, Texas's stadium, Darrell K. Royal, is, it's in the middle of downtown, right? So there's You got skyscrapers and parking garages in 6th Street and all this, and then the stadium sits in the middle of downtown and Frank Irwin Center. And I remember coming on my visit, and I'm driving down Lindsay Street, right, and I'm like, there's the stadium, like right off of Lindsay, a one way, and I'm like, my mind's blown because I'm like, where the hell do people park? How do you get what's going on here? How is the stadium off of this little side road?
Yep.
And so that just blew my mind. Then I realized everyone just parks in everybody's yard and all that stuff. But yeah, it was way, way different than what I thought, especially, a team that was coming off a national championship. And they just started putting up that east side, right? So they just started, that was kind of that was the newest selling little point, was that deck on the east side of that stadium that's there now. So yeah, I was like, yeah, let's do this. And so yeah, I got called traitor and Okie and all that stuff my senior year versus all the other teams.
Oh man, that's funny just to think about that, because I can totally see it. I mean, being in Austin and you're going to Oklahoma, I was thinking about there was one recruit last year, Colton Vasic, who had initially committed to Oklahoma. Dad's a Texas alum. And then, of course, eventually he decommitted and decided to go to Texas instead. But it was like, I was thinking to myself the entire time, like, what made anybody think, or made you think you were going to go to Oklahoma and people were not going to just jump all over you for leaving and going against the rival? Because it's a rivalry. Oklahoma and Texas, we don't like each other. There's a purpose for that. And so, but luckily you were a part of the ride of blowouts and beating up on Texas, so we don't have to really dive too far into that
I was
portion
part of them 65-13s and 12-0s. So yeah, we got a handle of them, and then I lost my junior, so my fourth and fifth year, my junior and senior. So we lost to Texas. My junior year, obviously, that was their national championship year.
Yeah.
And then lost to Colt McCoy the following year. And I always say that was really our only true loss that year, because our first loss was Oregon, right?
Oh yeah, the onside kick.
And so, the onside kick, and then the miracle at Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. So there was 2 games in there in that 11-3 season that were borderline. Well, the Oregon game wasn't borderline anything. That was a flat out robbery job.
Yeah.
And then Boise State, obviously, the stars aligned for them that day, and they got us.
Yeah, I remember that. So I guess what the interesting on that one is you got to play with Adrian Peterson as your running back, and we had a stable of backs in your era, man. What was that like, having those backs that you just hand the ball off to and they're gone?
Yeah. And Kale's got to get more credit, for the arsenal that he's had since he's been there, starting back with, Quentin Griffin and Ronaldo Works and, DeMarco Murray's, and, you had the two guys here, at Cincinnati now. Like his name.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine. Yeah,
Samaje and Joe Mixon. Obviously, DJ Wolf played some running back there a little bit before AD got there, and then so there's been great quarterbacks at OU for a long time. But yeah, to have Alan Patrick was kind of who stepped in for AD, right? When AD got hurt versus Iowa State that year. And so Iowa State, is when he broke his collarbone. Alan Patrick, who started off as a DB, came in and really relieved, because DJ Wolf ended up flipping. When AD got there, AD just messed everything up, right? He just had people going all sorts of different directions. And so DJ went to DB. And Alan Patrick came in, after that Iowa State game, and just straight dominated. Had a big game for us in the game before the Big 12 championship versus Oklahoma State. had some real big runs in that one. Had some big plays versus A&M that year as well. But yeah, makes my job easy. I had the best seat in the house there for a while, right? Just handed to AD left, handed to AD right. But then he got hurt, and then it was the Alan Patrick show. Chris Brown as well. So Chris Brown was really a workhorse for us as well. Had some big plays for us in the Big 12 championship, as well as our other running backs, and so stable of backs, right? We could just turn around and hand it to anybody, and so.
Here you go. Just doing that nonstop. Yeah, it was comfortable.
I think A&M. That was I think we ended up winning that 13-12, that A&M game. But I think I maybe threw the ball. It might have been. I think it was my lowest passing attempts. It might have been 6 or 7. I mean, it was low. We just ran the ball the entire game. So. AP, Alan Patrick, got the ball a lot, got a lot of carries. Then AD, as you remember, he came back for the Boise State game, for the Fiesta Bowl, was his first game back.
Yes, yeah, you were just you just had to hand the ball off. That's all you had to do, which was awesome. You didn't have to really think too much, especially in that game. So so last one, I gotta ask you this one. We got Paul Thompson, former OU quarterback, here on the show. But me and a buddy has been talking about this last few days. Well, actually, the last 2 weeks. That 2003 season was probably Bob Stoops' greatest team, one of the greatest teams in college football history that just did not win the championship. And as we talked about earlier, you had the K-State Big 12 championship game, which to me was so fluky, while at the same time, it's Bill Snyder, who knew Bob Stoops very well, and it kind of made sense of the way it ended.
Mm-hmm.
But you had that one game in there that was probably the funnest game you'd ever played in your life against Texas A&M. See, told you gonna laugh as soon as I mentioned it.
Yeah.
You were out there because you scored how many? You scored 3 touchdowns in that game? 2 passes, 1 run?
So I know there was a defensive. I think Derek Strait had a defense, but it was 49-0, and I came in the second half and played the second half. And so, from 49 to 77 was us. Again, I think there was a defensive touchdown in there as well. But yeah, I had 2 rushing touchdowns, I know. And then what a lot of people forget is, it was 77-0 in the third quarter. This wasn't the end of the game. I mean, this was the third quarter. So I'm telling Dante Hickson, I'm telling Dante Hickson, don't score, and we're in the third quarter, right? So we're in goal. We're on, I don't know, the 10, the 9, somewhere in there. And Coach Stoops sends the play in, and he's like, "Yo, tell Dante, don't score." I'm like, "Wow, this is wild, right?" We're the third quarter, and sure enough, I told him, and a lot of people will still remember that play because Johnny Jolly for A&M comes through, makes a tackle on Dante, and gets up and does this dance, right? And then you can see me, if you watch the video, you can see me go run up to him, and I'm just barking at him like, scoreboard this, and what the hell, you're getting smashed right now. Why are you doing this belly dance? And I go, we told him not to score, right? And so, and it's funny because Johnny Jolly he went to Green Bay. I was in Green Bay briefly, so we kind of joked about that a little bit, that game. But, that was revenge, right? Because the previous year, 2002, us at A&M, right? They kind of spoiled our national championship hopes that year.
Sure did, yes.
Right? Reggie McNeil, true freshman, just like I was. He came out the same year out of Lufkin. Straight lit us up, and they got us, right. So they knocked us off that year, and that really derailed us as far as the national championship picture. Still won the Big 12 championship, made it to the Rose Bowl, but that A&M game the previous year really knocked us off course a little bit there. So it was nice to handle them the way we did when they came to our house.
Yeah, and then you had the Rashawn Woods game. And that if I'm correct, that was wasn't that the big time catches, and because after getting thrown off from A&M, then
so Rashawn Woods was 0-1 in the corner of the end zone at OU, because that was before I was there. And then so then we played at O State and lost to them again. Back-to-back years, we lost to them in 02.
Yeah. Woo. That was the excitement for Gundy, while everybody's going to make it seem like he needed to that was definitely his job at that point. He secured his lifetime job those 2 years in a row. But no, I from that A&M game, it was the fascinating thing is like you said, going into the third quarter, it was 49-0, and everybody's like, okay, don't score, we're not going to blow this up. But when you just started rattling off points, and the goal was like, it was like, okay, they could go for 100. What stopped Bob from letting y'all go for 100 points?
I don't know. Especially at least give us the whole third quarter to go full speed, right? Or maybe even through the fourth, especially because we got a lot of young guys out there that's getting reps, right? I'm on TV. I'm on ABC. Mama's watching at home, And so I want to show out. And so he called off the dogs, though, third quarter. And then, fourth quarter came. The clock just ran. And so the fourth quarter was quick. But yeah, man, it was just everything just went our way. I'd have to look back. I don't know if we had any punts. It seemed like every play or every drive ended up in 7 points. And so, we probably had some punts later on in the fourth quarter or something like that. But everything worked. Like I said, we had I think a defensive score by maybe D Straight, a strip fumble.
Straight got that fumble. The last touchdown that made it 77-0 was the Straight fumble recovery, and he ran it in. It was like, wow, did Oklahoma even?
Right.
Wow.
Right. And so A&M just laid down. I mean, it was too easy at that point.
And for those that are curious, yes, there was one punt the entire game for the Sooners, and A&M punted 12 times in that game. Their punter had 421 yards punting.
There you go.
That's embarrassment. But
that's bad.
That's bad. But that will wrap things up. Paul, thank you so much for pulling up. We've got former OU quarterback Paul Thompson joining the show. Man, I appreciate you taking some time to join us and talking some ball.